Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by ReplenishingCareTechnologies.com, the future of sports medicine. To find out more about replenishing technologies, just go to the Grueling Truth, click on the banner at the top of the page. It'll tell you all about their products. I'm your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now I want to welcome in my other co-host, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Pretty good today, Mike. How you doing this fine Tuesday morning?
Oh, I'm doing great. My Bengals are 2-0. Your Colts won a game, so not all as bad as it was last week, at least for you.
Not unless you're a kicker in the NFL.
Well, those guys are no longer kickers in the NFL, so it doesn't really matter. All right. Before we get to this past weekend, and a lot of things happened from Josh Gordon to Michael Kendricks, the NFL's ridiculous penalty on Clay Matthews. Let's talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame. And the NFL Hall of Famers sent a letter Tuesday to NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, NFLPA Executive Director DeMaurice Smith, and Pro Football Hall of Fame C. David Baker, and players who make up the board sent this letter. And it seems that, the letter opens this way. We, the underside Pro Football Hall of Famers, were an integral part to the creation of the modern NFL, which in 2017 generated $14 billion in revenue. But when the league enshrined us as the greatest ever to play America's popular sport, they gave us a gold jacket, a bust, and a ring, and that was it. It seems that after you retire from the NFL, you have health care for 5 years. The letter goes on to point out that Major League Baseball players, even those who only appear on a Major League roster for 1 day, are guaranteed health insurance for the rest of their life. What's your take on this, Steve? Because I've got problems with it. Because my biggest problem with it is there's a ton of players that aren't Hall of Famers, that didn't make the money these guys make, that are like Ricky Dixon right now, who's got ALS. He's got to fight the NFL to get any money at all, and these guys don't even address this.
It's a complex process, basically. First and foremost, I don't ever begrudge anybody. The old adage is you're paid what you're worth. And so if they're going to negotiate and try and get it, they bully for them, and that's what unions are for. It does not appear the union seems to be very strong. NFL seems to have always had a problem with unifying and what the players really want, which I think has hurt the NFL, and it's what strengthened the owners' resolve and why Roger Goodell's kept his job so well. He's so good at keeping unity among all the owners when it comes down to these collective bargaining agreements and things that the players are never just strong enough on the same page. Here you go again. The NFL Players Union, the Hall of Fame Players Union is out now, and all they're asking for is insurance and health benefits for Hall of Famers, not all NFL players. So that right there tells you, again, it's a fragmented segment again of the NFL, which will be pretty easy to defeat. They're threatening to do what? Not show up at the 100th anniversary ceremony?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. My feelings on Hall of Fame ceremonies anyway. We did a whole show on it earlier in the year, and I think that they're overrated and overhyped and blown way out of proportion anyway. It's a nice thing. When players of quality caliber deserve to go in, they go in. The other misnomer here is when you talk about health benefits, and I retired from a pharmaceutical company after 25 years, and I got health benefits for life. They aren't free health benefits, okay? I still pay for health insurance. All it allows me to do is to be part of the Pfizer healthcare retirement plan. I still pay a premium every month. So these guys, you're thinking they get one day in the Major League Baseball, they get free health insurance for the rest of their life? No. They get the right to buy into the health plan that the Major League Baseball Players Association provides for their players. Sometimes it's upwards of $1,000, $1,500 a month to be a participant in the health plan, depending on what type of insurance you want. If you want a la carte, or if you want HMO or PPO or whatever, it varies in price. So it's not like it's free insurance. So a lot of the players that are retired probably wouldn't really justifiably be able to afford the health insurance anyway. And the ones that can't afford it probably have gone out and gotten a better deal and gotten their own health insurance, or are employed gainfully with other entities are getting health insurance through their own organizations. So it's a big misnomer about the health insurance, about you play one day in Major League Baseball, you get health insurance free for the rest of your life. It's not like that. There's a fee involved in that. So I think it's another self-centered thing by the NFL, which is just always chock full of self-centered things, for the Hall of Famers to come out and just say this letter only really pertains to us Hall of Famers who have done something extra for the NFL. Again, it just shows where everything lies with the NFL. It's a whole all about me league.
All right, baseball players do not have to pay for their health insurance. It is free. Bud Selig, who put this into effect, basically said it was the right thing to do for the players because of the money the players had put in, and that was why. So when you look at that, Major League Baseball does take care of that. And I think with the NFL, I think they should take care of it. I think it's ridiculous that they don't, because what they're doing right now is they're taking guys that have ALS and refusing to pay anything for them, even though they lost the case. And my problem with the NFL players here is this. As an example, Lawrence Taylor in 1987, when the players' strike was there, crossed the picket line. Players were striking for better conditions, including full retirement benefits. But Lawrence Taylor, who now wants these full benefits and wants to strike for it, in 1987, when the players were striking for full benefits in retirement, he crossed the picket line. So, I mean, this is a joke. And, if these players get their demands, it would benefit only a small portion of former football players. That's Hall of Famers. These players who made the most money while they were playing and also have the greatest capacity to make money off endorsements and autograph signings in retirement are among the least vulnerable. The players' lack of solidarity with their former teammates, many of whom are also suffering physically, mentally, and financially, and who undoubtedly made the Hall of Famer's career possible, undercuts the letter's message. And when you look at it, it goes back to NFL players not looking out for their own. If you go to the strike in 82, the strike in 87, there was never one time where the players that were playing at that time wanted to do anything for retired players. And when you get the new CBA, there's no way. I mean, if the NFL was to strike because they wanted full benefits for guys like Ricky Dixon, Matt Blair, who have problems and the NFL won't take care of them, then I could get behind that. But this is just a bunch of rich guys, for the most part, trying to get richer and not worrying about, if you're Dan Marino, you're not worried about the guy that was your starting right guard for 10 years that might have ALS or might have dementia now. You're just worried about yourself. And, I mean, when you look at it, that makes them just like the NFL owners.
Well, and that's just kind of what I just said in my statement, kind of the very same thing. To me, that falls upon the union. The players' union needs to be stronger and unite better, as you said in your oratory, that there's no cohesiveness among the players to stand up and say, we collectively all are on this page. We want everybody taken care of or we don't play. That doesn't happen. And here's another fragmented segment again, like you said, going off on its own, looking for its own piece of the pie, not worrying about all the other parts that are in the pie pan. And until the union gets strong and bargains as a whole entity and not different parts of the entity, and now you've got the Hall of Fame Board of Directors union or whatever they want to call it. I don't know if they're a union yet, but they're a separate entity now.
It's just the Board of Directors.
Yeah, but they're going to act as a union and speak only for themselves and not for all players. And again, you weaken their argument. And maybe they'll just cut a deal with those guys and quiet everybody else down. The NFL's a master. Goodell's a master at doing that, of breaking your ranks and keeping everybody off guard and weakening the line. So it's difficult to make a charge and to attack with a full frontal attack and take on the owners and the establishment of the NFL.
All right.
It falls on the union. The union needs to sit down in 2021 when the bargain comes up and says, we're not talking until we get health insurance and coverage for every player that plays in the NFL. We want to match what baseball has. Now, the problem there is if baseball is entirely free, I'm sure. I mean, I find it very difficult to believe that professional baseball could bear the brunt of 100% coverage of baseball, of health insurance for baseball players, although the sport's not physically as devastating as football is. So it might, but I would think the co-pays are up there. I mean, there's got to be expenses involved by the players participating in that.
I just read their pension, and that's what it said.
Yeah.
And that's why, Bud Selig said that the reason they were doing it was. And also, I don't think baseball players do have as many problems, which helps. But there's also,
And there's half as many players.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's half as many players. I think what needs to be done is they need to take care of the players that are having difficulties, though, especially when you look. Any player that had difficulty before the NFL would admit that there was a problem. I mean, when they were going around saying getting a concussion, didn't really affect you, something should have been done there. Let's go to something else that's ridiculous in the NFL, and that's the roughing the passer rule. And I know all Green Bay fans are up in arms after their last game. And, Clay Matthews, his Kirk Cousins, there's no way it should have been a penalty. I mean, Matthews made sure not to lead with his helmet. He made sure not to go low on Cousins. He made sure not to go high on Cousins. And he avoided driving Cousins into the ground. He purposely kept his weight off of Cousins. But when you look at this now, the worst part is the NFL thinks this is a great call. It is going to be used to provide teaching tape for officials on how to flag roughing the passer calls because they say he lifted him up. And the problem is, when you watch it, he did not lift him up, Steve.
No, I just watched the film before we got on the air. They had it on the internet. I watched it. I mean, to me, it was a textbook tackle. He wrapped him right at the waist. He moved his head completely over to the left side of the body. And the first contact was made with the right shoulder pad of Clay Matthews' shoulder. He came at him at full force. I mean, he's coming barreling down on him. Cousins still has the ball, or releasing the ball right at the moment of impact, and he drives him. I mean, of course, a 260-pound, 270-pound linebacker is going to drive a 210 or 220 or 230-pound quarterback.
Yeah, but the NFL said he didn't drive him into the ground.
No, but he drove him backwards. Well, the minute you drive somebody backwards, you're going to lift them off their feet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like his shoes are glued to the ground and he just hinges down to the ground. His feet are coming off the ground. That's contact. Two cars hit head on going down the interstate. Both cars lift up off the ground for a second. If you watch enough NASCAR, every time you see a wreck, cars get off the ground, even if it's only for 4 or 5 inches. It's just inertia, moving things. And I looked at that and I go, okay, now I'm really confused because now I don't know what a legal tackle is. I think this whole thing's gotten out of hand with these quarterbacks. I understand the amount of money that they're signing these guys for, which is probably the biggest part of the problem. You're signing these guys to $30, $35 million a year. They go down. The owners have invested the money and don't have Andrew Luck for 2 years or a player of that caliber. And my wife and I were talking the other day. It's like we ought to just get a set of flags and put flags on the quarterbacks, and it's just flag football for the quarterbacks. If you can get to them and can grab the flag, then they're down. And you don't touch them, period. Because it's about what it's coming to. Yeah. And I don't know what to say. Because, I haven't really seen what I call a vicious hit on a quarterback yet. And I spent most of the first 2 weeks watching Red Zone. So I'm seeing a lot of games and a lot of big plays and a lot of games and a lot of quarterback sacks and things of that nature, and I'm just not seeing where I think there's been any what I would call headhunting for quarterbacks. I mean, there's been hard hits, but damn, it's a contact sport, Mike. And there's always some times when you say, boy, he could have pulled up, but you got a guy barreling down on a quarterback, and this is all happening within 2 or 3 seconds. And he's coming hard at you, and a lot of times the quarterback will pump. You don't know what the quarterback's going to do.
Yeah, and the thing is,
the guy pulls up.
Matthews doesn't even know if the ball's still in his hand or not.
Right.
Because it's in his hand when he first initially makes contact.
Right. It's just gotten overprotectively silly now with the quarterback and it's altering games now. Now it's starting to alter games, and nobody wants the referee to be altering games. Let the players play, let the coaches coach, let the defenses and offenses dictate the outcome of games, not referees making judgment calls on whether his shoulder pad was high, low, whether he hit on the belt line or he hit 2 inches above the belt line, 2 inches below the belt line. Or you're going to get to a point where you're going to have to make every quarterback sack a reviewable play. And boy, wouldn't that just be fun?
Yeah, but, I mean, they won't. And, well, they might. It's the NFL. Now, if you want to get even more surreal with the NFL, if you watched Monday Night Football last night, you'll find out that having pleaded guilty to insider trading 11 days ago, getting cut by the Cleveland Browns on Hard Knocks and facing up to 25 years in prison eventually, Michael Kendricks was still on the field, making 3 tackles and a sack for the Seattle Seahawks in a 24-17 loss to the Chicago Bears, who now look like they have a new Monsters of the Midway defense. And what's going on here, Steve? Colin Kaepernick can't get a job, but Michael Kendricks can get signed, even though he is awaiting federal sentencing in late January for something that he admitted to doing.
Well, I'm sure that there is a rule somewhere written in the codicils of the charter of the NFL that give them right of eminent domain to play Hendrick in this type of situation. Lord knows what it is, but and it falls right in line really with Josh Gordon being picked up right away by New England, which probably was a savvy move by New England. But basically he was released because he was pretty much 5 times drug convicted or drug caught, using illegal drugs in the NFL, suspended 5 different times, late for team meetings. And yet I don't understand what the NFL does. The NFL really is about a bunch of old guys that want to compete and want to win at all costs.
Well, how about this?
They want to present themselves as a God-loving American flag, God bless the military, sing the national anthem before every game, and we are family, America's family game. That's how they want to present themselves. What they really are entirely is just a league of guys that will cheat like a son of a bitch to turn around and win a football game. And they'll do whatever it takes, short of pulling kids out of prison, to come and play in the NFL.
Well, the NFL personal conduct policy reads real clearly here. It says players convicted of a crime or subject to a disposition of a criminal proceeding as defined in this policy are subject to discipline. But even if the conduct does not result in a criminal conviction, players found to have engaged in any of the following conduct will be subject to discipline. That conduct is this. Prohibited conduct includes, but is not limited to the following: crimes of dishonesty, such as blackmail, extortion, fraud, money laundering, racketeering, theft-related crimes such as burglary, robbery, or larceny. And the thing where this gets really weird, and I think what the NFL's doing is, I think the NFL's waiting to see how big of an outcry there is against this, because they have already said that they let him play this game, but they are looking into it, and he could face discipline action where they could indefinitely suspend him. But I think, once again, this is the NFL PR machine just trying to see how many people were pissed off about it before they make a decision.
Yeah, that's the way they operate. That's just the way the NFL operates. Again, it just goes back to all they're really concerned about in the end is putting on good shows and winning football games and TV ratings. And this guy makes a couple big plays at the end of the game. He's a good player. So I don't know what to say.
All right.
There's no clear-cut policy on it. If the guy admits guilt, admitted to it, and he's just waiting sentencing, then I would think that would be, no, that's out of our code of conduct. You are out of the league. You cannot play unless this is overturned or an appeal's done and you're exonerated from these charges.
Yeah, but in the past they've had guys like Ezekiel Elliott who they've suspended anyways, even though you had text from his former girlfriend telling her she was going to make shit up about him to take him down. Then we get another weird one as the Patriots announced Monday afternoon they have traded for Cleveland Browns wide receiver Josh Gordon. Throughout his 6-year tenure in Cleveland, Gordon, who hasn't been active for a full season since his rookie year, battled substance abuse and faced several suspensions from the league. What's your take on Josh Gordon going to the New England Patriots?
Well, from New England, it's brilliant. I mean, if anybody can handle Josh Gordon, it's going to be Bill Belichick. He's a quality wide receiver. He's talented, and that's an area where the Patriots could use help right now. So for them, it's great. For the NFL, it just falls right in line with everything else they do. They move stuff around, and they let things go to benefit the team and keeps teams good, keeps them in the playoffs, keeps them in the hunt, keeps the games interesting. So they overlooked this one again too. The guy's got 5. At what point is a death penalty fall into play here? You get busted 5 times for substance abuse. When is enough enough? Is enough ever enough in the NFL, or is it selectively enough?
If he takes a knee now, that would probably be it.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, people always say, well, it's just for marijuana. It's just for marijuana. But he has multiple DWIs also. He's admitted to using cocaine before. He's admitted he's an addict. And my question is this. When does it come to the point, and I know we've already discovered with the NFL, it doesn't come to this point, but what's the point where maybe if you're the commissioner, you just say, hey, Josh Gordon needs help, and probably bringing him back to play football is not the way to turn his life around, because it seems to keep him in this overall problem all the time, because he'll go to drug rehab, he'll get out, he'll come back, he'll play, and you know that he's around things that he probably doesn't need to be around. Why don't they just tell him, Josh Gordon, you're done, and we're going to pay for you to go to rehab to get your life straight. And when you get out, maybe we'll give you a job as a scout with an NFL team or something, and you get your life straight. You worry about that instead of playing football.
Well, I mean, the honest answer there probably is the NFL doesn't care.
No,
they don't. They don't care. All they care about is, can Josh Gordon catch footballs? Can he make plays in the NFL? Is he a star quality player? Is he going to make the game more presentable to advertisers, to TV ratings, to fan bases, that nature? That's all they really, truly care about. That's probably the real answer. They'll have a propaganda answer for you down the road that explains why they can't do that or don't do that, or they're trying to do that in some fashion. They've offered it to him. Probably through the collective bargaining agreement, those options are probably available to him if he chooses to take those options. But the bottom line is I don't think the NFL just cares at all. They'll run him into the ground and use him for as much as they can, and then they'll kick him out to the curb, and he'll end up, it's a footnote in some story 7 or 8 years ago in a drug deal gone bad, probably.
Yeah. Probably.
Or possibly. Probably or possibly.
Probably. But at least possibly.
Yeah, at least possibly. And I don't want to say I don't want to put a label on anybody on that, but that's likely where those things will end up down the road, because if you can't change that process right now, when you've got as much help as the man's ever going to get to clean his act up and to try and take an opportunity that 99.9% of all kids that ever loved the game of football would kill for it and hopefully make a life for themselves for the rest of their life and their families, and he's just throwing it away on a daily basis. He's not going to do anything to change once he's out of football, and the adulation, the money, the recognition, and the support opportunities are going to be there for him. He'll just fade away into some neighborhood somewhere, and like I said, he'll end up possibly being a footnote in something the tragic that happens down the road.
All right, real quick, we're going to take a 42-second commercial break to check out the PEMF machine. When we come back, we'll talk about the Week 2 games, so make sure you come back or stay with us for the next 42 seconds. We'll be back right after this. Replenishing Technologies helps athletes of all levels train, recover, and perform at their absolute best. We do this by offering the PEMF 120, the world's leading pulsed electromagnetic field therapy device. Workouts, injury, and stress cause cells to lose their natural power. PEMF works like a battery charger, helping cells regain the power needed to dump toxins, take in oxygen and nutrients, and repair. 95% of athletes report less pain, increased range of motion, more energy, and they simply feel better after using PEMF 120. If you'd like to count yourself among that group, contact us at www.replenishingtechnologiesinc.com. All right, guys, we're back on Survive and Advance. I'm Mike Goodpaster, sitting here with Steve Risley, and we're going to look at all the Week 2 games, or at least the ones that seem to be ones that need to be talked about. And the one to me is the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 42-37. Patrick Mahomes, 23 for 28, 326 yards, 6 touchdowns. On the Pittsburgh side, Big Ben, I know we said he was looking old before, but 39 for 60, 452 yards, 3 touchdowns, so it definitely wasn't his problem. The problem there is the Pittsburgh's defense, but my question to you, Steve, is are the Kansas City Chiefs for real? When you look at this is a team that hasn't just won their first 2 games. They've won on the road in the NFL, and they've won against the Chargers and Steelers, 2 teams that a lot of people thought were playoff contenders. Is this Kansas City team for real? And is Pittsburgh that bad?
Well, it's difficult to say 2 weeks into the season whether a team's for real or not. I mean, definitely Mahomes is riding a hot streak right now. Things are falling into place. They're a very well-coached football team. Historically, doesn't Kansas City seem to always jump out to some great start and then usually start to kind of come back to the pack about midway through the season and end up pretty much losing one of the first couple of playoff games in the season? I know that they always struggle to get by the Colts.
I think the difference here is this. When you look at Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes, we don't really know exactly what Mahomes is. Right now, he looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, though.
Sure.
With Alex Smith, we knew that there was a ceiling on what he could do. And when you look at Travis Kelce, Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Kareem Hunt running the ball, this team has weapons all over the place. And most of the time, I don't read too much into a 2-0 start either. But winning in Pittsburgh and at the Chargers, to start off 2-0 and you've got 8 of your 14 games left at home, I think is a significant accomplishment.
Okay. I can't dispute that at all, Mike, but I will say this. First off, the Chargers are not going to the playoffs. Not likely. They're not a playoff contending team, and the most team in the greatest disarray of any team in the NFL right now is probably the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know that there's a more dysfunctional team in the NFL right now. I'm sure we'll bring that up here as part 2 of this discussion. But I don't know if they beat a quality opponent yet. I don't want to take it away because they've looked great. I mean, 10 touchdown passes in 2 games, such an NFL record. Mahomes looks like he's Aaron Rodgers in his prime. The team, they're very well coached. So, I mean, all things point toward Kansas City, but it's just hard to predict 2 weeks into it. They have played 2 games on the road, and every road win is like winning a game and a half at home. And so it's all good, but let's see if they can sustain it. I do not know what the rest of their schedule looks like. That going down the road, what division are they forced to be playing again? So they play in. Do we know what division? They kind of match up divisions. So the AFC West will play which division is pretty much. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. You mean what division are they playing in the NFC?
Yeah, what's their NFC counterpart division? Like I know the Colts and the AFC South are going to play. They play the West, the NFC West. So they've got to go into the Rams.
If you look at their schedule, though, you've got the 49ers at home, which they should win. At the Broncos, I think they win that. Then they get the Jaguars at home, and that'll tell us a lot right there. And then they go to New England. Then they host the Bengals. So I think weeks 4, 5, and 6 is where we find out completely if they're for real or not. If they could get 2 out of 3 games there, I think they're a definite contender. And really, playing the Jaguars, the Patriots, and the Bengals, if they just win one of those games, they may be for real. And when you look at their schedule, I know I had them going like 8-8 this year and having a rough first half of the season. But the second half of the season, their schedule gets much easier, except they do have a game at the Rams. So, yeah, I think this is a team that can win 12 games. But I think that the stretch where they play Cincinnati, New England, and Jacksonville, I think, is going to tell us the tale.
Right, and I don't have any reason to dispute you at this point in time. I just don't want to get all hot and bothered over a team that's 2-0 who I don't think has played a really quality opponent yet, although they have won both the games on the road, and you would think Pittsburgh would have rebounded after its mess with Cleveland in the first game. But, Pittsburgh's in such disarray right now that I don't think that I'm not sure they're going to win a game in the next 2 or 3 games if they're not careful.
Yeah, and it looked like they would be all right with out Le'Veon Bell after James Conner went off against Cleveland in Week 1. But this last week, 8 carries for 17 yards. And then you get, of course, the Twitter message from Antonio Brown about
Brown wants trading him.
Yeah. So I think it's great. I think it couldn't happen to a better team.
So what you're saying is you're not really a Steelers fan.
No. I'm just going to roll with my Bengals.
And that comes from a man whose favorite team sits in the same division.
And is in
or conference
and undefeated.
There you go.
And
the Cincinnati Bengals.
2 average teams. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles, who looked like they had problems in Week 1, even though they beat Atlanta. Definitely had problems in Week 2 against Tampa Bay as Ryan Fitzpatrick, or Fitzmagic as they call him now, 27 for 33, 402 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. This Fitzpatrick has done this before for a few games. But the thing that stands out to me is the Buccaneers have been a team over the last 2 years where everybody always called them a playoff sleeper. And if Jameis Winston played well, that they could be a threat. Jameis Winston's never been consistent. Fitzpatrick has played well, and now the Bucs are a threat.
Yeah, I mean, again, watching Red Zone, you see a fair amount of them because they're scoring a lot of points. They look good. They look solid across the board. They're making big plays. They're not fluking into wins. They're battling and they're staying back and forth and moving up down the field with their opponents. It's Fitzpatrick. How long he can keep this going is a $10 question. And how soon before Jameis Winston starts chirping that he wants back in the lineup, and what do you do with that?
Well, I would tell you this. If he keeps throwing 4 touchdowns and 400 yards, Jameis Winston's just going to have to be quiet anyways. And so far,
right.
When they asked Winston about it yesterday, he said Fitzpatrick should be starting. Deshaun Jackson said he should be starting. The question is, what happens if Fitzpatrick runs this out and he's 5-0, and then in Game 6 he throws 4 interceptions? I mean, do they keep riding with him, or then do they go with Winston? And either way they go, then you cause possible friction in the locker room.
Right. And that's always that's what coaches get paid to be coaches for, in my opinion, in professional sports. Really, there's not a lot of coaching that goes on. How in the world does Luke Walton tell LeBron James how to play basketball?
Yeah, but you're talking about basketball. There's a big difference between coaching and basketball.
I get that. But the things that coaches do in professional sports are not the same things that coaches do in college sports. Professional sports, coaches set offensive strategy. They call plays. They do things of that nature. They don't really coach the players to any great degree. So I would say one bad game should not pull Fitzpatrick out of the lineup initially. But these quarterback controversies always rear their heads, and that usually is what breaks down a team. When you start going with more than one quarterback and start shifting them back and forth and not showing confidence in the team, starts half the team gets behind one quarterback, half gets behind the other quarterback, and then you've got a break in the ranks, and you don't have a solid culture working toward a common goal. So let's just hope that Fitzpatrick keeps it going for the season, has a magical season. Winston stays in check. I think the biggest part of this problem is Jameis is going to get frustrated here pretty quickly if Fitzpatrick keeps playing, and he's going to start. He'll be nice social media-wise for now, but any slip-up by Fitzpatrick, and I can guarantee you Winston will be out there saying he needs to have his shot to go back and play again. He's ready to go.
Yeah.
And he'll –
I think we can say the Eagles will be fine because Carson Wentz, it looks like, will be back this week.
Well, that's interesting. And that's an interesting call right there because basically this is a team, and they come back against the Colts, which is probably about as good as a shot that they could bring Carson Wentz back at because still don't think, even though they beat Washington last weekend, I don't think the Colts are a formidable opponent for anybody yet. But this has pretty well been Foles' team for well over a year now, and including a Super Bowl ring. Yeah, that adaptation right back to Wentz, it's going to be interesting to watch and see how that plays out. I was kind of hoping this would be a national game, but I don't think it will be. It's a 1:00 game. It's an East Coast game. But interesting to see how that really plays out because this team has Foles' personality to it. He's directed this team for a year. They're comfortable with him in that position. Like I said, they've won a Super Bowl with him. And to just throw Carson that quickly back into the mix and just anoint him that position, again, but they said all along that Carson Wentz was their number one quarterback, and even Foles has said that. So it'll just be interesting to see the dynamics. I don't expect a lot of big things. I expect Wentz to be rusty. I don't expect him necessarily to even finish the game. I think that if it's a tight game down the road, and the way Luck is playing right now, his arm is good. He and T.Y. are hooking up really well, although I don't think they have the defense to shut him down. The Colts could be a little frustrating for him and put a little more pressure on them than they were probably hoping. Washington found that out. I'm sure Washington went into that game thinking, well, we can get a win here. We're at home.
Yeah, but
we're playing the Colts.
Not Philadelphia.
No, I agree. Washington's not Philadelphia. But still, I think Washington probably overlooked the Colts to some degree. And Luck has looked good. He hasn't looked like his old Andrew Luck, but he looks solid. He's finding receivers. He's throwing with zip. He could pose a problem to the Eagles because the Eagles have not looked very sharp in either one of their first two games of the season. You throw a brand-new quarterback in who hasn't played in over a year, and it's going to make for an interesting game. A little more interesting game than I think it would have been had they left Foles in the lineup and the Eagles being as frustrated as they are, looking for a revenge game. But now you put Wentz in there. He's going to be a little jittery, a little nervous. We'll see what happens. It's elevated status of that game.
I think the actual heart of this team is Carson Wentz. I think when they get him back, you'll see him kick it into gear like he was never gone. Just a guess.
I agree.
But
I agree.
You can't agree. You just said the opposite.
No, I said let me finish my sentence. I said eventually.
Yeah,
I think the first
right
game
away.
back. No. Oh, well, I don't think so right away. I think there'll be some struggle getting continuity down, getting timing back down, and we'll go from there. We'll see.
Fine. Next up, we talk about the Cleveland Browns, who can't seem to get out of their own way. Another game they should have won. Another game they didn't win. Now Hugh Jackson's 132-1. They're up 12-3 going into the fourth quarter, and they're the Browns, so the wheels fall off. But Tyrod Taylor made a throw on like a fourth and whatever it was at the end of that game that was unreal. Then their kicker comes, misses the extra point. I'm not even going to worry about saying the kicker's name because he's not their kicker anymore.
Gonzalez?
Yeah, Zane Gonzalez. I didn't want to beat up on him anymore, but since you brought it up. So, what the hell? What are the Browns going to do? I mean, it doesn't matter how good they play. They still figure out a way to lose the game.
Well, first off, the Browns are competitive. They tie Pittsburgh, and we know Pittsburgh's got issues. But still, to tie Pittsburgh, I still think is a good thing. And they came in, they were in this game the whole way through. Now, New Orleans didn't look very good at all. And New Orleans may be one of the more overrated teams in the NFL. But I'm impressed with Cleveland. I think they've got a good nucleus of a team that's not going to be the doormat of the NFL anymore. They're going to win some games. They're going to pull it, punch it through. Tyrod Taylor is impressing me. He's playing well. He's playing good, solid football. He's not a Tom Brady by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not giving away football games for this football team. So I think they just, their kicker let them down big time. They had opportunities to win. They're playing as good as I think you would expect Cleveland to be. And if I was a Cleveland Browns fan, I'd be very encouraged and very happy with the way they're playing right now and figuring they're going to win more games than 2 or 3 this season.
Well, the only problem with that is if you look at them last year, week 1, they lost to Pittsburgh at home 21-18. Week 2, they lost a close game to the Ravens at Baltimore. Week 3, they lost a close game to the Colts 31-28 at Indianapolis. Week 4, they did get blown out by the Bengals 31-7, but they come back week 5 and they lose 17-14. They lose week 7, 12-9. And my point is this. Even last year, when you look at this, there's 7 or 8 games. I mean, they lose to the Browns 27-21 in a game they could have easily won. They lost to the Steelers 28-24 on the last play of the game. So I think the problem is this. They may have the right personnel, but there's something wrong with a team that loses that many close games all the time. It's usually coaching.
Yeah, I knew you were going to get that. I know you're not a fan of Hugh Jackson.
No,
in
I'm
any
not
way,
a
shape,
fan
or
of
form.
anybody on that coaching staff except for Greg
Right.
Williams, the defensive coordinator. And when I look at it, it's the same old thing. I mean, last year, after the first 3 weeks, and they'd lost 3 close games. Everybody in Cincinnati was hearing, well, they're a lot better because, they're more competitive now. And then they play the Bengals as 31-7. They lose a close game to the Jets. Everybody's, well, they're still on the right tack. They just had But what happens if they lose a close game to the Jets? Which could happen. I think they should beat the Jets. But if they lose the game to the Jets, I think the season's going to spiral out of control for them real quick.
Yeah, then I think they make a coaching change.
The bye week?
I don't know when the bye week is for them. I don't know I know Colts are November 4th. That's about all I know bye week wise, but I don't know when theirs is. You pull up their schedule real quick and look it up. But I think right now the root of the problems for the Cleveland is more geared toward coaching than it is toward players. The interesting thing is going to see when Tyrod starts to not have a good game or does not play well for 1 or 1.5 games, and then the chance for Baker Mayfield start coming in. And I'm still not convinced that in the long run, Baker Mayfield's not a better choice for this football team than Tyrod Taylor. Although I can't fault the way Taylor's playing
well,
right now.
They should have won the game. Their bye week is not till the middle of November. They've got the Jets next, then they go to the Raiders. Those are both winnable games. They get the Ravens at home, which is winnable. It's a divisional game. They play the Chargers at home, which will be a rough one. They're at Tampa, which who knows. At Pittsburgh, who knows. They host Kansas City. They host Atlanta. Then they go to Cincinnati. I mean, there's plenty of games here where they could win.
Right.
But every game's a game they could win. It's the NFL. Next up, the game I wanted to bring up was the Texans and the Titans. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is we both thought the Texans were going to be really good this year. And they've started off 0-2. The first loss, a close loss to New England, is understandable. The loss to Tennessee, though, if you saw any of it, whether it was red zone or not, you're losing to Blaine Gabbert, who's 13 for 20 for 117 yards. Derrick Henry ran for 56 yards. When you look at the stats to this game and you compare it, Deshaun Watson threw for 310. Lamar Miller, 14 for 68. If you just looked at the stats, you would think the Texans won this game by 10 points. But they didn't. They lost. And now the question is, with everything that's happened the last few years with Bill O'Brien, is his job in jeopardy? And my other question is, when you look at this, are the Jaguars just going to run away with this division this year?
I think the Jaguars are going to run away with the division. The Jaguars look solid. We're not talking about them yet. But Deshaun Watson, I have never been he's never really impressed me as a impactful NFL quarterback. I mean, it's all the hype of him being a great athlete and all this great potential. And
well, he's only started 6 games. So it's like Jimmy Garoppolo. No matter what he does, you got to wait a couple of years to see if somebody is a legit star at the quarterback position.
Okay. And I just heard the hype about how he was going to change. I mean, Houston went from being a doormat in the AFC South to being the team that should dominate that division for the next 4 or 5 years when they drafted him. And I'm just not seeing it. I mean, maybe it's his lack of not playing, his injuries or whatever, staying out. He's not the impactful player that I think everybody thought he was. And I think that they tried to build a team around him, and I don't think it's working. And I think that they may not match the Colts this year. Colts may be looking at second place in that division right now if the Colts can sustain any kind of effort and keep Luck healthy.
I think it's a stretch because I think any of those 3 teams could be second. So I think the Jaguars will run away with the division. They beat the Patriots 31-20, and the thing that stands out there, Blake Bortles 29 for 45, 377 yards and 4 touchdowns. And the biggest thing to me is this. Leonard Fournette, who's the best running back for the Jaguars, didn't play. I know New England's getting Josh Gordon, but I think as of right now, early in the season, the Jaguars have to be the team to beat in the AFC. Yes or no, Steve? And that's not my answer. I'm asking you the question.
Yes. Yeah, well, you got to look at Kansas City, too. I'm not going to throw Kansas City out of the hunt right now. If we're going to go based on predictions after 2 weeks, Kansas City's looking every bit as sharp as Jacksonville in my books. I mean, I don't know that Jacksonville can shut down Kansas City's offense right now. I don't know that anybody can shut down Kansas City's offense right now. So that would be the funnest AFC game to watch in the next 2 or 3 weeks when you see Kansas City and Jacksonville go at it. I think those are your two premier teams in the AFC right now. And so I think if we looked at it right now, it should boil down to Jacksonville and Kansas City if everything stays constant between now and the end of regular season play, some 14, 15 weeks down the road. So, but Jacksonville certainly looks great. They look solid. They look like they've improved from last year. Bortles is almost kind of a Carson Wentz type of player. He doesn't look necessarily very pretty, but he's effective. He's getting the job done. He's moving his team. He's using all of his assets and resources. He doesn't seem to be making as many terrible mistakes as other quarterbacks make on the field and doing a good job. So I think, yeah, them and Kansas City would be one of the two teams that I would be banking on right now to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
I would still bank on New England. Bill Belichick's the coach. As long as Bill Belichick's the coach, they're going to get better. And the other thing is this. I think the Patriots play in an easier division, which is more conducive to having a home field advantage at the end of the year. And instead of going to Jacksonville and playing in heat, you may be going to New England and playing in snow. So I think when you look at the AFC right now, it's got to be the Dolphins, to me, at 2-0 does nothing for me. I mean, they've beaten two teams that weren't very good, I don't think, or aren't very good, the Jets and the Titans. So I think they're out of the Patriots are going to win the East. You look at the North, I'd say it's almost the Bengals by default right now with the way that the Steelers have fallen apart all over themselves. You look at Jacksonville in the AFC South, AFC West, you look at Kansas City. Those four, barring injuries, look like the four best teams in the AFC. And when I look at this, it's hard to come up with a fifth and a sixth team as wild cards that could be a threat to any of the four of those teams.
Right. It'll be somebody that comes out of the pack that picks up some good wins. Denver's always got to be in the hunt in that mix.
Denver, you're looking at a team that's had to come from behind to barely beat two bad football teams at home. So, I mean, I think it's hard to – I mean, but like you said, with the wild card thing, you could have an 8-8 and a 9-7 team in the wild card.
Right.
I just don't see those teams as wild cards really being a threat unless they're playing the Bengals in the first round of the playoffs.
Well, and Miami could be in good position there, too, because they're playing in the same division as the Pats, and they're going to play the same weak teams. And if they can hold their own, and they may lose to the Pats twice, but if they beat everybody else in their division, that gives them a good opportunity to pull up enough wins to get a wild card spot. So I'd say Miami's in as good a position as anybody right now for a wild card spot. I don't see any of the teams in the AFC South when they're also the rest of the three are so evenly matched. I think 8-8 is about the best you're going to hope for any one of those three teams, being the Colts, the Titans,
which could get you a playoff spot.
Which could get you a playoff spot, right? And out west, I with Kansas City, San Diego doesn't show me anything. Oakland certainly is not showing you anything. Denver is always Denver. They're always, as long as Elway's in the picture there, things get thrown together late. They've got a good defense. Denver's got to be a team that's got to be considered in the AFC. Pittsburgh, I don't know that Pittsburgh can rebound. I don't know what they're going to do with Le'Veon Bell. I think they're going to keep sinking farther before they pick themselves up. But certainly if Pittsburgh gets themselves picked up, they become very formidable very fast. If they get Le'Veon Bell back and you get Antonio Brown back into he wants to be in Pittsburgh, wants to play, and Roethlisberger rises to the occasion one more time, Pittsburgh becomes really good really fast.
Well,
you agree with that?
The problem there is, even if they all get along, a defense that's given up more than 30 points a game, you're not going to win a Super Bowl with. You're not going to get to a Super Bowl because if you play Jacksonville, New England, Kansas City, and you got to outscore them, you're usually not going to win. And with a slow start, I just don't see how you're going to have a home field advantage to win. And if you look at it, if they're a wild card and they've got to go to New England, their offense is not going to perform well there. You play a team like Kansas City. Kansas City will outscore you Cincinnati can outscore. Cincinnati can score points with them, and their defense is better. The same thing with Kansas City against Pittsburgh. So when you look at it, I could see them coming back and possibly being a wild card. Hell, I could see them even winning the division because, Marvin Lewis is still in Cincinnati, so you never know what could happen there. When we look at the NFC...
playoffs wouldn't started, though. The playoffs haven't started yet. Marvin's good till the playoffs start. So don't knock Marvin.
No, Marvin
He's
sucks.
good. He's good
No,
coach
he's
until the
not.
playoffs start.
He's like 8 games over 500 for 16 years, so I don't want to hear that. He's had half of his years have been good enough to make the playoffs. The other half is...
We have a lot of fans. We have a lot of fans in Cincinnati that listen to us.
Yeah, and they'll all agree with me.
Okay.
NFC, I think there's no doubt the Rams are the best team in the NFC West. They're the best team in the NFC right now. They shut out the Cardinals 34-0. They're just loaded. Defensively, they're loaded. Offensively, they're very good. They're a well-coached team. I don't think the 49ers are ready to make a playoff run yet the way a lot of people did. And, of course, Seattle's terrible. And the Cardinals are going to battle with the Bills to see who the worst team is all season, Steve.
Agreed. Yeah.
Then,
Rams are the only team I think that can compete right now from what I'm seeing is Minnesota.
Oh, I disagree. I think the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are still the defending world champions. They're going to win that division because I think the Cowboys are not very good. The Giants are even worse. The Redskins are shitty. So I think the Eagles run away with their division, and the key to that is it'll probably give them home field at least for a divisional playoff game. When you look at the NFC North, I still think this. You still got Rodgers limping around. The Packers and Vikings basically beat themselves against each other is how they ended up with a tie. I think the Bears would be a legitimate threat if Mitchell Trubisky was better than what he is, but he's not. I think the Vikings come out of that division. I think when you look at the AFC South, I mean, I'm feeling the Falcons here. I think the Falcons are going to get things going. The Falcons have a lot of injuries right now, and the Carolina Panthers went to Atlanta and couldn't take advantage of all those injuries on the Falcons' defense. They blew a game that they could have won. They lost it by a touchdown. I think the Saints are a team that are very well coached. They have a running game. They have a Hall of Fame quarterback. They're going to get their stuff together. And how many times, Steve, you're a Colts fan. How many times did the Colts start off 10-0, 11-0, 12-0, but they weren't playing their best football at the end of the season because they'd played it at the start of the season?
Yeah, but a lot of that, too, comes down to the deal with Dungy and his benching players to rest them and not hurt them toward the end of the season, too. I know the one time the Colts went into it 13-0, then they started benching everybody when they had a legitimate chance to go undefeated. When you get to 13-0, you don't try and win out your games, because you want to protect players.
You can't really play great all year round. And my point is, if you go through the first 8 games and you're 5-3, you might be better off than if you're 8-0. And it may sound nuts, but if you look at the last few years, the teams that started off 7-0, 8-0 are the teams that peter out, and you get teams like, hell, the Eagles and Patriots both lost their season opener last year, and they played each other in the Super Bowl. And I think the Falcons and Patriots did the year before. And we know every time the Patriots lose, it's usually the first half of the season, and everybody freaks out and says, see, they're done. But they're not. And we saw that because Sunday they lose and they're done. Monday they pick up Josh Gordon, and all of a sudden everybody thinks they're the best team in the AFC again. And I hate to tell them this, but I don't know if even Bill Belichick can get Josh Gordon under control. But I will say this, if anybody can, it's him. So I think when you look, what division are we missing in the NFC? I mean, I think the South, the Falcons right now are the team that's going to catch fire and win that division.
I would agree with you there.
I think the Rams run away with it. I think the Eagles run away with it. What division are we missing?
South, Central.
South Central, L.A.
Is there? No. There's the West.
Yeah, which we got the Rams. We got the Eagles in the East. Okay, we got them all. We got the Rams and the Falcons. I mean, I still think Green Bay is a factor, but the problem with Green Bay is right now they're one play away from disaster. That's why I don't think they're a factor. Because when you look at that team now, it's just Aaron Rodgers.
Right, one hit on Aaron Rodgers, and that other half of that MCL or MLC or whatever goes, and they're done.
Yeah, because their defense is bad. The running game is pretty much non-existent with Jamal Williams and Ty Montgomery. So if you don't have Aaron Rodgers, there's not the players there to be able to win without him.
No.
I mean, if he has a bad game, they can't win with him.
He appeared to be hobbling more and more against Minnesota as the game went on. I mean, he was putting less and less pressure on that leg. I don't think you can really count the Packers as a major factor because it's like you said, one Clay Matthews hit, be it legal or illegal, and fortunately Matthews is on his own team. But one hit, and there go the Packers right down the tube because Rodgers goes down.
But luckily for the Packers, the Packers' next 4 games are at Washington, Buffalo at home, at Detroit, San Francisco at home. So they're going to win all 4 of those games. And then, no, you're going to the Rams, you're going to the Patriots. So when I look at their schedule, I would say, why wouldn't you sit Rodgers and rest him if it's not that bad? Because you could go to Washington. You could go to Washington, Buffalo, and Detroit and win without Aaron Rodgers. Those teams are that bad.
But is there anything they can do with Rodgers that's going to heal it? I mean, is it just not a surgical repair on that, or is it something that's going to heal on its own if it gets given time?
I would assume it's going to heal on its own if given time, or they would have done something about it.
Yeah, well, then they need to be considering resting him as much as they can right now because they still have to play the Bears again too, don't they?
Yeah, and if you look at them, their schedule with the Redskins, Bills, Lions, 49ers, if it was surgery and it was that minor, he'd probably be back by the time they play the Rams anyways.
Yeah, I don't know to what degree of injury he's got.
I don't think they're ever going to let us know what degree of injury.
No, they're not going to let you know how bad it is, exactly.
Which is very unfair because we're very important people.
Yes, we are.
At least we keep telling ourselves that, right?
Yeah.
And someday it'll come.
No doubt.
If we keep saying it. Somebody else will start to believe it then, too. Anything else you want to discuss today, Steve?
No, I think we've got it. Again, it's the second week in the NFL. It's kind of really hard to take a look at really who's going where yet. So we got some, I think the really only 2 things are the Rams are the class of the NFC. And I think New England made a big jump in picking up the receiver they got. And Kansas City looks sharp. Other than that, it's kind of just everybody just maxed out there trying to find themselves. The interesting is the big thing. We'll see what Wentz does with Philadelphia this week. See if he comes back sharp or if he comes back rusty, and what that does to that football team. It either stays in the same or it elevates them back to Super Bowl status. So things are starting to shake out, but still a little too early to start predicting division winners and Super Bowl champions at this point in time.
All right, Steve, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. Remember, if you want to follow us on Twitter, go to @GruelingTruth or @SurviveTheMagic. I want to remind everybody tonight at 9:30 Eastern Time, we'll have live the NFL Pick'em show on thegruelingtruth.net. You can go there and get it. We'll also retweet it on Twitter when it starts. It'll be myself, Matt Scavage, Brian Schmidt, former Carolina Panther quarterback Tony Pike, and tonight our special guest picker will be CJ DeSimone of the Jets Factor podcast on thegruelingtruth.net. If you're a Jets fan, you definitely need to check out the Jets Factor podcast. I want to remind everybody you can hear us on iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else you find podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.